We've seen rates go up as well. So generally, actually, Q3 has probably been more bearish. On the economic front, again, not much in terms of improvement. I think the major boost was that oil production came back up sometime in July. So oil earnings should be better in Q3. That said, oil prices have also been weaker in Q3. So generally, I would say that actually things are slightly worse than where we left them off at the end of June.
Where do I take all of this to the market? So let's add currency to this conversation. You've seen our foreign FX reserves a little bit, trimming a little bit. Then the Naira-dollar rate still remains stable. Of course, we see the US dollar making major strong gains on a number of currencies, not with the punishing of the Turkish lira and then the euro. So even folks within the Eurozone says, well, they didn't believe the euro would get this strong, but in fact, we get to get it strong. So, but the dollar had a very decent year so far. So where do you see this currency as part of the conversation for investors in the market? We've seen about $2 billion outflow in our markets already. Do you think this sweet currency story and interest rate will continue to drag us along to the rest of Q3 and maybe into Q4?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. I think coming into this second half of the year, what we expected was more pressure on currency. So autonomous inflows from foreign investors were expected to dry up, and the view was that the CBN would have to take a more active role in supplying dollars in the market, even in the NAFEX window. And that may already be happening, with the reduction, albeit slight, of FX reserves. I'm not particularly worried by that because ultimately that is what the reserves are there for. So even if by the end of the year we are $5 billion down, but the exchange rate was stable, I consider that success because that is the purpose of having those reserves. But the pressure on the Naira that we have seen and the strength of the dollars and the euro isn't surprising given the dynamics of the global market, particularly with the Fed tightening. Come next month, we expect another rate hike in the Fed. And again, that's going to trigger a little bit more capital outflows from emerging markets and just a bit more pressure on Naira. But we do think the CBN has the ammunition it needs in the form of foreign reserves and oil earnings to prop the currency.
How do you think we'll be able to get within the currency, the economy, and the budget? How do you think we'll be able to reflate this economy? We've pushed the July 24 MPC meeting behind us. I think we should be due for another one in September or so. Ahead of that, the central bank and the commercial bank says, look, let's select some sectors, give them some credit. Big companies within the bellwethers there, give them credit at 9%, come back through the back door and collect your money through a cash reserve ratio. Do you think this will unlock the much needed capital liquidity infusion that this economy really needs to create jobs and put money in the hands of in the pockets of the people and help us reduce some of the problems we have on our hands?
Well, on the CRR-linked lending scheme, I'm skeptical. The MBS just released banking sector credit allocation data, I think today or yesterday. Banks are still lending just 3.5% of their total credit to agriculture. You're not going to bump that up to 10% just by telling banks that they can use their CRR funds to give out loans. There is a reason that banks have lent so little to sectors like agriculture, and it isn't a cost of funds issue. It is a structural problem. The fact that there is not enough information and banks don't have a risk appetite to lend to those sectors because they don't have enough information, and the normal credit market systems like collateral and so on don't function as well in those sectors. So it's adjusting or amending those structural impediments to credit. That's what's really going to unlock credit to those sectors. I do think this CRR policy will help, but I don't think it's going to have the desired effect and, as you said, really drive a lot of credit to those sectors and reflate the economy. especially in a pre-election year where risk appetite is very weak. I don't think it's going to happen.
The last question. Give me 1, 2, or 3 things you'd like to see quickly done within the economy to help us ramp up the GDP, because your forecast here is about 1.6%, and that's just awakening some butterflies in my stomach.
Yeah, so I think the most important thing for me, but one that I'm unlikely to get, is policy clarity. Policy clarity that really comes from political clarity. Unfortunately, our fiscal authorities seem more focused on the elections and maintaining power than actually delivering on the mandates, right? And without that, there's very little that we can do, because the Nigerian economy is still very weak. Consumer spending is still very weak, right? So we need a policy-driven approach to growth. And if policy makers are distracted, then that's not going to happen. So for me, that's the key thing. The second thing would be for the central bank to resist any urge to tighten. Yes, they're afraid of inflation going up, but I don't think that's a primary concern when you still have very weak growth. And so for me, it would be them maintaining the policy rate up until the elections, and then hopefully looking to ease a bit in the meantime. And finally, it would be for us to get creative and micro, right? So a lot of people bash or a number of people bash the trader money policy that sort of was spoken about last week. And yeah, I do think there are lots of flaws with that approach. And I think the main one is that it's a one-size-fits-all approach. And I think what we should be looking for is more of a sectoral-based attempt at reflating the economy.
Michael, let's leave it there for today. Thank you very much for kicking off the week for us here on the program. Michael Famoroti, the Chief Economist at Vetiva Capital Management. We'll take a break. When we come back, let's talk about transportation industry.